Hey, what's up guys? The landlord checking in. Today I want to do a video on hypertension because hypertension is one of those things that in a lot of communities, people don't take it as serious. But the complications that you can have from uncontrolled hypertension are ridiculously paralyzing and just really creates a really terrible lifestyle moving forward. So a lot of people have hypertension and are in denial about it, and they do nothing to try to get the blood pressure under control. And usually by the time that it gets out of hand, it's too late to reverse any of the complications that you're seeing moving forward. So I figured I'd do this video just to kind of shed a little light. And if most people knew exactly what was going on inside of their body, they would probably do a little bit better and hopefully take their medications. So I drew out some stuff, and this is exactly what I draw for my patients all the time. So I figured I'd draw it to you, and usually the light bulb click in their head and they say, oh wow, and they agree that they're going to start taking the medication. At least that's what they tell me before they leave the hospital, right? So what I drew out here is the heart, right? These are your lungs, and these are your legs that are swelling. So basically you have 4 different chambers in the heart, and they all do different things, right? But we're going to talk about these 2 here, which are more important ones, right? This is the right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle. So throughout your body, when the blood is old, it has to make its way back to the heart, and the heart sends it to the lung to become new blood again, and then the new blood is pumped out throughout the body to keep the system going. But when you have high blood pressure, it causes some changes inside of the body that slows down the process, and as things slow down, you begin to see a domino effect, and at that stage, that's when you start to see the complications. So basically, right, when the blood leaves, say, your legs and every organ, it always comes to the right side of the heart, right? Once it gets to the right ventricle, it goes to the lungs, because as you breathe, you are making that old blood new again. After the lungs make it new blood, it sends it to the heart. But when it sends it to the heart this time, it sends it to the left side of the heart. This side is one of the more important, this left ventricle. This is the ventricle responsible for pumping all of the blood out of the body into new blood all the way throughout, right? So when you have hypertension, this blood wants to just easily flow out of here. But hypertension is actually pushing against it. This is what's happening when you're not taking the medication, right? And at that point, this muscle, the only way that it can compensate for this high blood pressure pressing against it is for it to get bigger, right? Just like any muscle, right? So the muscle gets bigger, right? So the muscle gets bigger, right? And in the meantime, initially, it's able to keep up, and you don't notice any issues. But with any muscle, after a while, that muscle gets tired. Once that muscle gets tired, that's when you start noticing the problems, right? So you remember we talked about this assembly line, right? The lungs send it back to one side of the heart, and it's an assembly line, right? So if this muscle stops pushing blood out, then what's going to happen to the blood that's coming from the lungs, right? That blood still is already coming at the same rate all day, right? But once this ventricle stops pumping it out this way due to so much hypertension coming this way, eventually that blood is going to start backing up in the lungs. When it backs up in your lungs, that's when you lay down and you can't breathe, right? So if you still don't get it under control, the blood continues to further back up, right? So it's going to back up from all of those old places with old blood that's trying to come back to become new blood. It's not going to be able to come back. So that's when you see the legs start to swell, right? Then sometimes it can back up anywhere. Sometimes you see it's backing up inside of the abdomen area, so you have some ascites. And then in those cases, that's when you come into the hospital, because you're like, I don't know why my legs are swelling. I don't know why there's swelling in my stomach. It's all tight and all this and that. And then we give you some diuretics, which are water pills that cause you to pee off a lot of that fluid, and then your legs get better. Then you're able to breathe again. You no longer require oxygen and those things. Well, it's really bad when you get to that point. At that point, it's considered heart failure. You cannot reverse heart failure. You can only try to compensate for the fluid management, which your heart would have been able to do if you got the blood pressure under control. So moving forward, I hope that this video brings you some type of education, and hopefully you decide to take your medication. For any further questions, please do not contact me. Contact your nearest primary care physician. This was just some basic information to try to get the ball rolling, hopefully develop some questions so that you can either start YouTubing, Googling, and speaking to your primary care physician about these issues that you have. So landlord checking in, don't say I didn't teach you anything. Now it's time to do better because you know better.